Hey guys, it's your girl Lisa. So, yesterday I was having a couple of technical difficulties because I got a new toy and I was trying to work. I couldn't even get my camera to work, but it's working today. So weird. Anyway, so how are you guys doing? I just felt like I need to do a check in because with everything that's going on with the Diddy case, and the nasty stuff that we're hearing, um, is definitely a trigger. Okay, hold on. My camera just froze. Hold on. Okay. So we're going to do this. For some weird reason, my camera just froze. So we're going to do this without the camera. But anyway, like I said, I want to do is like a check-in to see how everybody's doing. I know with everything that's going on with the Diddy case, it's definitely triggering. I know it's triggering for me to hear a lot of the stuff that's happening. And like I said, the other day, I empathize with Cassie for everything she went through. Now, people got their own opinions. He did it, he didn't do it, Um, personally, honestly, I know he did do that. Um, I just look at the videotapes and hearing the testimony. I wanted to go to the court. I said, but you know what? And I had to and go, I'm glad I didn't. I don't know if I'd have been able to stay the whole time because from what I hear, it's pretty graphic. And my whole thing is, why is it that people do this to other people? I don't understand that. You know, with my issues, it's like, why? I asked this a couple of days ago too when I did this. It's like, why? Why do people do this? I mean, I understand it's about a control, but what do you kind of control? I mean, at the end of the day, you know, you don't have the power. You don't have the money. What are you trying to control? I don't get it. I really don't get it. So, so it's hard. It's hard. So I delve into my arts and crafts. It really does help. When I first got into when I first got into rehab, and one of the questions was like, what is your hobbies? And I was always I always said to myself, I always asked that question to myself, like, what does the hobbies have to do with my issues, with substances? But then as I continued to get clean and sober and stuff, I understand it now because it gets you out of your head. you know I know for a long time I stayed up in my head, you know and I'm trying to get out of my head because me being in my head, it stifles me from having that. It really does from making, but it does stifle me with confusion of, is this not the right decision? It's not just a mistrust of people, it's a mistrust of myself. I was never like that up until, the rape and the sexual assault. And then all of a sudden I became that because, you know, the guys that did this to me were supposed to be my friends. And that was an ultimate betrayal of friendship, you know, because anybody that is my friend, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do anything to hurt my friends, at least not intentionally. If anything, I'm going to try to protect, you know. So, along with that, I don't know if anybody can relate to that, but and when it comes to relationship, believe you me, that is so far from on the map. You know, it's like, do I or don't I? I have a hard time. Um, I really have a hard time with, you know, establishing. I don't know if that's the correct word to use, but I have a hard time, establishing a trust within myself. And now what I'm realizing as I'm talking about it is that, I trust other people until I learn how to trust myself. And I can, I'm sorry, it's in the crapper. You know, I do have friends in my life that I've been friends with 10 plus years, you know, and I do I do trust them. I do trust them. It took me a while to get there, okay? Because they proved to me that they would never do anything to hurt me. So that actually kind of established a trust within me for them, but when I meet new people, you know, trust myself, you know, and that's one of the fallouts that I'm in the rape, is that I don't trust myself. You know, in my case, when I was sexually assaulted and raped, it took a lot more. It took a lot more than um, my vulnerability. You know, it took a lot of the trust. And then it also, again with me, it cuts off my emotions. So now, not only do I not trust myself, now I got this numbness where I don't feel I have an attachment to people at all, because I feel like I'm emotionally cut off because of that. Now, that's not to say I don't love my friends. I do love my friends. I it's hard to explain. It's especially if you haven't really gone through it. But those who've gone through it, I'm pretty sure you can relate to what I'm saying. Is that it's very hard, to trust, and the emotion, the cut up, the disconnectedness. That's the word I was trying to use. The disconnectedness that I once had, I don't have anymore. But I am working so hard to get it back. You know, I don't want it fully back because, before all of this happened, I always trusted everybody, you know, And so I don't want all of that back. I just want some of it back, to where I can feel things, to where I can, because, when things happen to me, most people would like and cry, you know, like with my sisters. When my mother fell fatally ill, okay, see, this is where I'm going to tell a story. I tried to evade talking about it, but no, damn it, hell no. When my mother fell fatally ill, the apartment that I lived in with my mother, my sisters came in and threw me out of that apartment, locked me out of that apartment. So and neither one of them bothered to take me in. And like my middle sister, because me and her share the same father, my mother was married twice. At her first marriage, she had my oldest sister, she had my sister and I. So she didn't, they literally threw me out in the street. Decide to take me in. Did it really have to take that? But even with that, I didn't even stay long because eventually I went to the military. I left and I went into the military. The next time she heard from me, I was in boot camp. And I was just like, and now I can actually, as I'm talking about it, I can actually see where the mistrust comes from. Another part of the mistrust, because these are people that I grew up with. We grew up in the same household. We was raised by the same mother. And at the end of the day, when shit hit the fan, excuse my French, y'all threw me out to the wolves. And y'all didn't give a second thought of what would happen to me. So I had to figure out life for my own. Because I'm going to tell you, I was a mama's girl. And when my mother passed away, I was 23 years old. I remember that because I turned 24 in boot camp, which was the father. I was 23 years old when she passed. So I was definitely a mama's girl. And I had to figure out on my own how to survive. And then when my mother died, I had nobody to talk to. I had nobody to talk to. There was nobody there for me. God was there for me, but I'm talking about here on earth, as far as physical, there was nobody here for me. Absolutely nobody. I didn't know who to turn to. I had nobody to turn to. And then within that, because my mother died October 31st, 81st week of 1988, because we hadn't even buried my mother yet when I was right. Have the rape that's on track. Again, I had nobody to talk to. I had nobody to lean on. I had nobody to cry to, And this is where I think a lot of my mistrust of myself stems from. This is where my disconnectiveness has stemmed from, because up until that point, I had a connection because I had my family. So I thought. But when all hell broke loose, I realized I don't have a family. My mother was my family, and she's gone. And at the end of the day, y'all made it perfectly clear that outside of her, I had no family, you know? And so it's like, what do I do? Who do I turn to? I don't know. So in comes the drugs. And then even in the alcohol, because I couldn't do anything harder than that. You know, most with alcohol, they'll send you to rehab. That, but time I really couldn't afford to be put out. So, you know, besides, it was actually, but I had a couple of people in my command. Hold on. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm back. I'm back. But um, so I had to, you know, I was hang on. Hello? Okay. Huh? I know. Okay, what's going on?